David asked a question a lot of you have been asking. He said, do you agree with Pat Narduzzi's latest comments about Deion Sanders and his roster moves? Now, some of you may have missed this, so let me tee up the quotes for you first. Pat Narduzzi, the head coach at Pitt, right? Deion, obviously, the head coach at Colorado. Colorado's taken like 147,000 transfers this cycle. It's been the talk of college football. Pat Narduzzi's not new to this. Pat Narduzzi's been outspoken about a few different things that are changing in college football. A quick reminder, just a couple of weeks ago, he was on record, Pat Narduzzi, was on record as talking about USC tampering with Jordan Addison last year. Jordan Addison was the Biletnikoff Award-winning receiver for Pitt 2 years ago. And then there was that great dust-up last offseason. And Jordan Addison transferred to USC. And Pat Narduzzi came out and just flat out said, he got tampered with. We know USC tampered with him. So Pat Narduzzi's been outspoken, okay? So here's what Pat Narduzzi said about Deion Sanders and the way he's gone about putting together his roster at Colorado. And this was at the ACC spring meetings. Quote, "That's not the way it's meant to be. That's not what the rule is intended to be. It was not to overhaul your roster. We'll see how it works out, but that, to me, looks bad on college football coaches all across the country. The reflection is on one guy right now, but when you look at it overall, those kids that have moms and dads and brothers and sisters and goals in life, I don't know how many of those 70 that left really wanted to leave, or were they just kicked in the butt and told to get out?" Is this not the question that a lot of the detractors have had? And it's a question that people who are even indifferent on Deion Sanders have had. Is this college football now? Is this what you can do? Can you come in and can you essentially just cut the guys that you don't want and bring in a ton of guys, because there's really no restriction right now. As long as you've got roster room, the NCAA has decided there is no limitation in year one for a coach for how many portal guys that you can bring in. Some of you may not have known that, but that's how Colorado's doing what they're doing. So Colorado, an update on the numbers, 57 kids have left via the portal. A lot of them not by choice, some of them by choice. They have added 48 kids via the portal. That's crazy. It's just amazing. So we've never seen that before. So what Pat Narduzzi is saying is that's not what this was meant to be. The transfer portal was not meant to be a mechanism to overhaul your roster. The transfer portal was meant to be, wait for it, and these are my words, not his, a player's rights tool, right? That was how we debuted it in college football. Remember what the cry was? The cry was, well, coaches get to move around all the time. Why should players have limitations on how many times they can move? And then there was kind of a compromise that was presented to where, okay, as the NCAA, we're going to take away the one-time transfer penalty. So you don't have to sit out anymore. Now, that's really what changed. The NCAA did not just say you can go anywhere, anytime you want. They said you can transfer for the first time penalty-free. And that used to not be the case. It used to be that unless you got an exemption, when you transferred, you'd have to sit out a year. Feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? So they waived that rule. Now, I don't want to play the I told you so game because someone told me I do that too much. But when we heard that rule come down, there was a pretty high-profile segment we did on Late Kick where I said, this is certainly a move towards the professionalization of college football. Not completely, but it was a move that was much more in line with making it a world where you could move about however you wanted to. And all I said, I didn't take a side on it. I didn't say it was good or bad. I said there would be pros and cons. And one of the cons was you need to understand, because this was happening the same time NIL was happening. So the time where we started to move towards the portal will let you move wherever you want to, as long as you haven't transferred already. The portal lets you move wherever you want to. NIL is going to give you the ability to capitalize off your name, image, and likeness. I said both of those things are okay. Both of those things are fine. Then there was a pause, just as long as you understand what you're getting into, because what you were getting into is a world where you got treated like an employee. Now, you weren't going to be called an employee yet. We'll see where that goes. You weren't going to be called an employee per se, but you were starting to enter the world where more things were going to be given to you, and in return, more things were going to be available to your, for lack of a better term, employer. And it's not any different than if Jesse starts double parking in the garage out here and Jesse starts coming in late. Jesse can get fired. Why can Jesse get fired? Well, that's the trade-off of us paying him a salary and benefits and giving him a job. He's given something, something's expected of him, and if he doesn't measure up, then he's out the door. But also, Jesse could be doing everything that he's supposed to be doing, and if management's out and new management comes in, management could just not prefer Jesse, and they could go a different direction, and Jesse's not even given a good reason. He's just said, we don't have a spot for you anymore. Bye. Back to Pennsylvania you go, Jesse. Is that fair? Some would say no, but I would respond with, it doesn't make him any less fired if it's fair or not. It's just the way of the world. Well, college football wasn't like that. College football was a snow globe where you could exist and you got a lot of benefits, but you were largely exempt from a lot of those consequences that existed in the real world. And when we went portal route and when we went NIL route, it was good for a lot of players. It still is good for a lot of players. It was just going to come with the potential consequence of a coach being able to do what Deion Sanders is doing. Lincoln Riley did it too. A lot of coaches are going to do this. It's still new. That's why it's got that effect of still shocking people. And certainly very few people are going to walk in and do exactly what Deion's done. He's overturned an entire roster. But my thoughts on what Pate Narduzzi said was, I fully get it. I fully get it. I probably, in my own personal preferences, even lean towards the world that Pate Narduzzi would prefer. But that's all that is. That's one man, or in this case, two men's preference on how the college football world should look. Just as soon as I say that, just as soon as Pate Narduzzi says that, Director Colin could walk in the room and say, no, I like the wide open landscape. I like players being able to go wherever they want to. I like the NIL component, and come what may, I prefer that world. Which of us is right? Which of us is wrong? It's just opinion. And I'm not necessarily sure what majority is on that. I haven't done the focus group polling. I'll let you know when we get around to that. But I get it. I get the frustration from Pate Narduzzi, especially in a position where he's leading a program like Pitt. You probably won't hear head coaches at more major universities publicly say that, because the head coaches at the major universities, I'm talking about like the tier 1 universities, they know that they're eventually going to use that. They're going to use that mechanism a lot more times than it uses them. And so it's the world we live in. Take it or leave it. It's the world we live. Don't leave it. Please don't leave it. But it is the world we live in.